The next speaker we have is she'll be talking about how to adjust creative for the stay-at-home consumers. We have Raushida Vasaiwala, the General Manager of APAC, Celtra. Hi, Rashida. I think you need to unmute. Can you see the unmute button? Mute. Okay, yeah. We can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you. Hi, Rashida. Yeah, not yet. Okay, now can. All right. Thank you so much for joining us at Marketing in the New Normal, and very, very glad to have you on board in the day one, and looking forward to see what you're going to share to impact the rest of the world regards to how they can be contentful during this period. So thank you so much for joining us. You can take it away. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Just like Tivia said, we're going to basically talk about how to adjust for today's creative content demand. So super excited to be here. And we're basically going to cover how we are adjusting right now to the new normal from a work from home basis, and given the MCO, just like, how we are participating in this live stream at the moment. So, the COVID-19 situation has basically turned a lot of things upside down, and including all the marketing plans for brands and agencies. So I'm going to make this a little lighter and talk about how to adjust for today's creative content demand, and give some examples of some brands who are doing it really well, and also give you some insights about how there's a massive challenge today, and then talk about how technology, and especially creative automation that Celtra is offering, how it can help in addressing these challenges. So basically, I would like to add some sort of stats over here and talk about how just 97% there's a massive decline in the retail foot traffic globally since March, and the numbers reflecting here are about 97%. And obviously, there's a huge growth in online shopping, and this is covering all kinds, basically, all types of online shopping that can be available. And there's also a massive decrease in the CPMs, which means you get more inventory available. But don't get too excited, because the demand has also become lower and lower from an advertiser's perspective, at least right now. And in addition, you've also got marketers, including yourself, I'm quite sure. Even when it comes to Celtra, we've delayed many campaigns, and things have been wanting to do, and we've had to basically just push them out. So basically, what we are seeing is that this is happening across all the brands, and across the board, many brands are divided by this impact. Specifically, depending on which vertical or which category these brands fall into. So just to give you a perspective of what these businesses are. So on one hand, on the left-hand side, you see, P&G is massively doubling down on their marketing spends during the recession. Then you have companies like Netflix that is seeing a massive growth in its subscribers, which is quite obvious. And then companies who are benefiting the most in this situation is also Zoom. And then Walmart and Amazon, who are becoming massive beneficiaries of everyone simply being able to order directly from them. And then on the right-hand side, you see a massive struggle on the retailers who are in these brick and mortar stores. And basically, they're filing for bankruptcy, and something similar happening in the travel space as well, where the virus has created a massive negative impact. So, however, we are also seeing some brands who aren't really going silent, and they are doing some very ingenious branding to stay relevant. So they're not just running the emotional stuff, kind of, stock footage commercials, which we are all probably witnessing at the moment, like "we are here for you" kind of stuff. But there are some brands, like I mentioned earlier, who are getting very, very ingenious and very creative, and getting the message and the response done right. So I put together some examples. This is obviously not very, very comprehensive, and I'm sure you have some favorites and some more local examples that have done an extremely good job. But I'd like to call out a couple of them. So basically, Lowe's, they what they did was basically they built their entire culture and community through user-driven activation. And they had planned for a Super Bowl trip to give away, which basically they changed to a DIY thank you campaign, and it allowed people to express their gratitude to all the frontline workers. And this is going on across all the markets. So Lowe's also tapped into the same thing, and they encouraged people with DIY projects at home. So they played off on their strength of the DIY and turning their outreach efforts in a creative way that basically helped to connect with their consumers in a very positive and energetic fashion. Then another example is Guinness. So obviously beverages, not specifically in Malaysia, but given the sensitivity of the place, and this is just an example for you to know how they basically used alcohol how they used the brand to basically stay relevant in with their content. And generally in these moments, it does really, really well, especially with people staying at home. And initially, prior to the virus, they had all these Instagram posts and celebrities around celebrations, and they turned that into this old poster that they had called "Lovely Day for Guinness" into a puzzle, which is quite. It goes back a very long way, and it gave a feeling of the brand back in the days that they were using. So they brought that back via a link through a public supplier. So puzzles are obviously such a craze at the moment that they did a really good job of staying relevant, tapping into the art and creativity of the consumers, and working with celebration of their own brand. So not the celebration with drinking per se, but bringing the brand home in the most innovative fashion. The next example is Ford. So obvious challenge for them is who's going to buy a car at the moment? It's a tricky position to be in, but still want to be there for their target audience. So what they basically did was they changed their messaging from product promotion, which you see on the left-hand side, to helpfulness, which is keeping the cars clean. Again, a very innovative way of staying on top of the consumer's mind. So when things get back to normal, consumers are considering a car to purchase, Ford will stay on top of their mind. Then we've got Old Spice, and it's done a fantastic job. Everybody knows what Old Spice is. They've done a great job for so many years in terms of staying true to its brand platform. And that helps in staying brilliant and creating these delightful experiences. So what they did was they used all their old assets and repurposed that existing content to create stay at home and wash your hands for all their social ads in order to stay relevant and true to the moment as well. Then we've got Coors Light, which is another example, a beer brand. And they did something really noble without really appearing to be extremely opportunistic. So what you see on the left-hand side is very similar to the Guinness example. Here they're talking about celebrating with friends and stuff, but with the change in reality, what you see on the right-hand side is this lady called Olive. She's basically holding a placard saying, "Need more beer," while practicing social distancing. So this photo went quite viral, and Coors came through and delivered 150 cans of beer to her. And this became like a huge social phenomenon. So tapping into that right moment with the right type of creative made it super, super relevant for their consumers. And this is another example of Steakum that basically took to Twitter to deliver some very, very hard-hitting message. And this particular brand, it's a frozen food brand, and has a very typical persona on Twitter. Again, it's a highly trusted brand in the US, and it used social following to take on fake news and COVID misinformation that was going on. So post campaign, there was a Google post lift survey that basically showed that consumers were highly protective about the brand. When they started tweeting about all the fake news and the COVID misinformation that was passing, consumers defended the brand and supported the brand's new attitude, and thereby the message had a very solid impact on the consumer. So these are all very good examples of staying relevant with the right type of content. But here's the thing, although you have the right story, you also need the right content to run with it, right? And given the situation, like marketing leaders are looking to increase their social media production and video production at this time with existing assets. So that's where the challenge arises. It's really, really tough to orchestrate this whole creative production at the moment due to the work from home environment. And you have businesses that are still operating with crystal focus on a couple of key things, and naturally with the stuff that have run before. So how are you able to move things forward? And how can you do it in the most fastest and most efficient way? So there's another survey that said that 42% of marketers are lacking the bandwidth to adapt quickly for creating new content during this time. So you might have the idea what to make, but you might not have the tools to make it. So when you look across the work and consumer landscape, collaboration and resource are two things that are really thin and limited. However, content demands are at an all-time high, and businesses are not able to react quickly to use content at speed and connect with the consumers, which will basically stand a chance of getting disrupted. But at the same time, brands that are able to react very quickly, they have a chance to connect with the consumers in the right time. So this lack of convergence between the changes needed in the work landscape and the consumer landscape is becoming a problem that's quite, or a challenge that's quite prevalent. And again, this challenge is nothing else but the brands being able to keep pace with the content they need to succeed. So back in the day, everyone sat around the table and came up with one big idea. There was literally no technology to disintermediate them. And so this group had to come together, and there was also no remote collaboration, right? So, and not only would they brainstorm together in a physical space, they also had the time and the resource to create just one single thing. And what were they creating? They were creating Pass the Heinz, like one singular big idea that would work across print and television. And it was even like this when working on a website, like sitting around and discussing one big idea. But the challenge now is different. We have this whole new remote culture. We are multitasking, using a lot of tools and technology between us, between teams, and the people we are collaborating with. We are also using different types of, messaging apps, project management software, emails, etc. Everything has changed. And not only that, but the deliverables have also changed. That big idea of Pass the Heinz, for example, needs to be outputted across many channels, different types of formats for specific audiences, customized to their location by city. It could be language, it could be purchase intent. There could be so many things, right? So they're taking the big idea and making it work in different contextual moments. And what does this mean? It means producing a lot of content. So what you see here is the emergence of a giant content gap between the volume of the content demands for new channels, products, campaigns, data, and formats. So along with that, unfortunately, personalization is being driven with a flat or declining amount of production resources. And this is in terms of time, money, and also people required to produce this type of content, just by considering the sheer volume across all these different areas. So this is where we call this as a content gap. It is the delta between the production resources and the content you need to produce. So this content gap is further exacerbated by this COVID-19 reality, and is also felt across different organizations. So there are challenges in three different spheres, I would say. So the first one is the organizational silos, such as media, creative, and marketing team, internal team, as well as all the external agencies. So each of them feel that the content gap is slightly different, and the impact is also very different on them. So the marketing team basically wants to launch something on time, but the creative is challenged with taking, one single idea and executing it across all the different channels, formats, and sizes, also variants and different types of communication that would be needed. And then the media team has its own way of targeting, but they don't have the right assets for it. Then the second challenge, what you see, is the regional to global to local. So where you have to localize content, which has forced the organization to basically centralize the entire content production. But when that happens, what the result is basically local teams don't get to change things in terms of their marketing messages or marketing plans. And then finally, and most importantly, it's the creative challenge. So back then, when you had the pass the Heinz, we could show the same ad in print or TV or a large share of population. But now we have just that one single moment to make that impact with the consumer, and to be able to move really fast than ever before. So now with this whole remote working, how can you still collaborate, and how can you make an impact by creating a compelling story at that speed of culture? This is a big question. So how do you bridge that gap, and how do you adjust for today's content demands and go against that content gap challenge at that speed of culture, so that we can do it in real time and collaborate it across the board efficiently? And so here we'd like to introduce creative automation. Basically, it's an emerging technology, a software that gives brands and agencies a solution for exponentially increasing variety of content and ads across different markets, formats, channels, and campaigns. It also opens up a new level of collaboration altogether across all the different silo teams. So currently with your media team, creative team, everybody sitting in silo, it helps to automate the entire creative production process through efficient collaboration. So current process is highly repetitive and manual. So if you look at the typical campaign process, you have some offline design tools, with the likes of Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects, Animate, and that is used by the production team who create the assets for various distribution channels, which could be for website or email, programmatic, social, video. And then within the production team, there are different stakeholders and collaborators across this. So when you add that creative automation as a new layer, it acts as and especially within the production level, it helps to plug in from the design side of things to the distribution to create new ways to collaborate. So it automates the whole process the way it is done currently in an automated way vis-a-vis the manual fashion in which all the assets were produced in the past. So there are a number of design and collaboration benefits that can be actualized from a creative automation platform. So just to give you an example, basically marketers and creative teams can benefit by having more insights. So when marketers have more insights, they would want to apply it to creatives, and a creative team has more time to think strategically and to try out new ideas and things without having to worry about the production that needs to be done at scale. Second example I could give would be for these creative operation teams as well as project managers who can easily mediate through one single channel between marketing and design team without actually causing any kind of a bottleneck. And so what basically happens is that with the new way of collaboration is that you've added a new realm of content impact in 4 key areas. So you can start to look at design and layout as something you can experiment with and something you learn from that you can ideate and build a variety of content and test what communication is right for different type of audience or different types of products. Then there is a market and language benefit where you can centrally create assets but want to distribute it into different respective local language or different markets, and finally the channels and sizing. So the content scaling benefits are huge, and the way to think about content scaling is like a lever that is automated and that you can use to today's reality to come up with more repurposed ideas, more content that is relevant to current changes in business and distribute them seamlessly across all the different channels. So just to give you an example, the content scaling level you're seeing here is like a variety of different colors and products, variety of call to action as well. So these are all layers that can start to be more automated and tested again. Now, typically you're designing these ads and you're coming up and launching with one set of content or probably a couple that you are testing. But that content layer separating the design and content, it is not necessarily handled in the most efficient way. So to make a change in the content requires designers to go back to the masters or go back to the assets and start the production all over again. But with creative automation, content variety becomes can be scaled very easily, and it is actually a dimension that you can start to think through. So the same is true with markets and languages, and to be able to ideate and be really loud. So, in a market like Malaysia, where you have different types of, you want to run an ad in 4 different languages, you are easily able to do that without really having to build multiple creatives, but rather just have change in languages done in one consolidated creative. And then what does this look like in a different market as well as, different channels and sizes? So how does this big idea live in Twitter, or how does it live in Facebook, or how does it live in programmatic or YouTube, Snapchat, and different other, if you're an e-commerce platform, you would also have different types of affiliate partners. So these all channels become automated levers that you can use when coming up with your content plan and when you're trying to launch things in a much faster and react to it in a much faster way. So essentially, content scaling includes dimension of design and layout, content variety, market and language, and channels and sizing that basically add up to a new level of collaboration and speed that becomes available to all your teams. So what did we cover right now? We basically spoke about the content gap challenge as well as the COVID-19 and how to be global crisis ready in order to collaborate and deliver creative faster than ever. So let me show you some examples of how brands are doing this using creative automation. The first one is like, I'm picking up Hannah, which is essentially a Celtra created brand. And it represents different customer situations without specifically talking about, customer use cases. So you'll see this in these examples. So the first one here is a challenge whereby Hannah wants to shift its branding campaigns towards e-commerce only activities. So you may have faced this already. Some of you who already have certain assets or you're running some campaigns, you're basically shifting all of that and moving towards e-commerce. So you ran a brand campaign for 2 months, and now you have to hurry up and get going towards e-commerce. And so here what you're seeing is that brand images in the background with Lip Lux message and learn more call to action. And now it has moved to a Lip Lux product with shipping benefits and price information with a shop now call to action. So this makes a great example as creative automation basically allows for quick set of new campaign and reuse the core assets and any strategy setup basically. So behind this, essentially, it involves to switch assets very, very quickly. And also it allows for extension to multiple channels. So ideas can be easily implemented through this lever across Facebook, Instagram, and also exported for email if you're doing any kind of CRM with the same message. So all that is required is a master template, and you can swap the brand for e-com at the master level. And then you can start to publish and distribute into a variety of channels. So these are use cases that we've built from cases that we're seeing. The next example would be messages that need to be changed in a live creative. So if you see the background image there is a lifestyle creative of hair care with a model who's holding a subway or a bus handle, which is obviously not happening at the moment. And the message needs to be more hygiene and stay home oriented. So it allows you to go into and make changes at the design level with review and approval in a collaborative way, basically, and it allows you to do it across all the channels. So what is happening is that it eliminates the starting of production process all over again and redistribute and retraffic. So there's also an ability to change one by one if there's any specific change that is happening that needs to be made. And this is all when your campaign is live. So another option is that it can also be done in batches. So editing is possible in real time without really having to pause the campaign. So you can quickly swap in, swap out any kind of imagery or content that is needed. Then the next example is the creation of a library of templates and design that can be used proactively in multiple markets. So brands who just have local presence, and I'm referring to all the attendees of this live stream, may not be relevant to you, but if there are brands who are covering multiple markets, basically you can think when you're creating like a toolkit for product launches, or you've got all these assets that you might need. Creative automation helps to let you do that at a far more granular level. So it basically lets you do as much more, you can reach that level of granularity with specific moments and time for key sales event and key promotional times. So changes that are happening, like a new benefit that you want to call out to new customers, you can actually set this up in a very agile and flexible fashion as well. So what we're seeing is customers who create separate templates as they see different needs of content required in a variety of ways, and which has the ability to reuse and activate them at different levels. So basically, you can even set up for media teams, for your marketing teams, and which is primarily a self-serve tool, right? So you can allow permission that can be granted to any of your team members, that could be across marketing or media also, who can act on these templates and make these real-time updates. And so you don't really need designers to go back and work on it from scratch. So yeah, and then we have one last example, where you have inappropriate content in the toolkit because they were designed for, a different reality than what it is today. So here you see like a luxury hair care within reach, a woman on the beach, which is not going to work for the Hannah brand. So what they wanted to do is start a stay home and stay safe and stay beautiful messaging. So they had to create a new toolkit and adjust all those creative content, swap out all the image and copy and almost all the elements, and getting approval of the new layout with the different look and feel from outdoor to indoor, from graphic to illustrative approach, and more of photography instead of video. So these are the kind of things that creative automation can do, which is no longer a process of having to come up with one concept and manually producing all of them all over again. So it helps to allow teams to basically collaborate together and know what's working and act as much faster speed in a collaborative and centralized way. So basically, automation changes everything. And I'd like to show you some results as well. So brands who have been using Celtra's creative automation tool, how has it helped them? So first example is of adding scale, staying relevant and adding control. So the results are basically recorded by this large media company who has been using Celtra's creative automation to swap out all the content products that needed to be built within the creative automation tool in Celtra. So they built like a global suite of masters by themselves and were able to go into those masters and adjust them as and when required, and expedited the whole process of change that they wanted to make for higher relevancy. And this basically resulted in 260% increase in the engagement rate across their entire content portfolio. Another example is of a global retailer. So they basically needed to shift customers from their physical stores to e-commerce and be able to add a variety of assets into the creation of their campaign. And they achieved that through creative automation again. So they ran multiple campaigns in a month, and each campaign was manually produced. So through creative automation, it helped them to accelerate the whole production process and also save them roughly $70,000 of production cost per campaign. So this is humongous. If you look at the numbers in totality, it brought about a huge cost saving for them. And then one final example over here is of a global media service company. So what used to take them, a couple of months is now done literally in a couple of weeks with large volumes of creative content. So decrease in the overall production cycle and increase in the amount of variety and volume that they wanted to deliver. And this basically increased in the number of subscribers that they wanted to get. So just to summarize it, basically creative automation is a new emerging technology that helps brands to keep pace with today's creative content demands. It also helps to adjust the reality that you're in to help you collaborate remotely, but efficiently and at speed. And yeah, that's about it. I'm happy to take your questions. Hello?
Hi, Shida.
Hi. Hey.
All right. Thank you so much for your presentation, for sharing your input on this topic. And I think very, very interesting facts about how creative you can be when you are digital and how different type of software that you can use to maximize your work. It's really, really very interesting. So thank you so much, Shida. Also, there's one question though. How Celtra can help SMEs who are not having a big brand?
So you don't really need to be a big brand. Basically, how a creative automation tool can help is, regardless of your size, so long as you have some sort of internal design teams and media team, if you're doing everything in-house, the tool allows you to be highly effective, and it helps the team members to collaborate in a very, very effective and efficient way.
All right. All right. Thank you, Shira. Thank you so much for that. And I think one of the questions that I wanted to ask was, because we are at home and a lot of things are restricted. And if we were to start something from scratch, start something that we are not used to, but we want to be creative, we want to go on and creative and do a lot of stuff online, what is the first step that anyone who are out there would like to take to go ahead with your process?
To go ahead with
the process of achieving the digital content?
I think so. The idea is all about staying extremely relevant, right? Which I covered to a large extent. I mentioned that how do you want to connect with your consumer and how can you stay relevant? So you start off with that, and then based on that, you come up with your strategy on who your consumers are and how like individualized or personalized messaging is so important and so critical. And then based on that, once you have mapped that out, then you can identify or establish if you require some sort of an automation tool to help you achieve that scale if needed.
Okay, if you guys have any questions, do put it in the comment section below so that Sheila can help us answer. And the work that Celtra is doing in regards to helping SMEs to see how we can create the digital marketing content is really, really amazing. And some of the work that you have showed from designing and posters onwards really, really looks amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that aspect. And if you have anything that you like to say to wrap up the session, you can go ahead. And if there's any more questions, we'll take up. If not, I think we'll do a conclusion.
All right. Okay. No, nothing from my end. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Raushida.
Exabytes. Grow your business online.